Hi, Jim. Thanks for doing this today. We'll start off by asking for your thoughts on the way the season has gone to this point and whether it's changed your view on what this group might be capable of in the long term.
Okay, well, we started the season. We had the week training camp, no exhibition games, and then we started into the games. I think part of part of our problems early on were we played like 16 games in 25 nights, and in those 25 nights, we had two practices in 19 days. And so what happens with that when you don't practice, when you're just like saving all your energy to play the games, you have a bunch of new players. Travis doesn't get to, use that practice time to work on our systems. You lose execution when you're not practicing. You don't have puck touches. But I thought, the last couple weeks, when we've had time to practice, and our systems we're playing with more structure and discipline in our game. We've been in all the games the last couple of weeks. I think maybe we have some puck luck. We have maybe two or three more wins in those 11 games. But we're Travis is working with our group. We want our young players to continue to develop and get better. And, I think we've seen that. I think the last 3 weeks, like Bo Horvat, I don't know if you guys can tell on TV watching and stuff, he's played some of his best hockey. He's, the physical presence that we need, playing a good matchup role, still scoring points, but, his game has been as good as it's been. Another player is Brock Besser. Like to see his game evolved, getting in on the forecheck, fighting for pucks. We know he can score. He's got a great shot. He's going to score his goals. But to see him, in the back pressure, working to get back and become a complete player, I think, those are positive things to look at in, sort of the first half of this season.
And when you look at, where you're at in terms of playoff positioning right now with, how the results have gone in the first half, how much does that change the way you approach the second half of the season from, a player asset management perspective and the trade deadline?
Well, we still have 27 games left in the season. So, we got 16 games till the trade deadline. Like I said, the last couple of weeks, we've been in all the games. So we're going to, the one thing about our group is we got a resilient group. They're going to work and compete every night. Playing in this Canadian division's tough. The teams are, playing against the same six teams over and over again. They're good teams. They're, in a lot of cases, you look at the top 10 in scoring in the league, and I think there's 5 or 6 players in our division. So every night we're facing good competition, good players from other teams. Our best young players are 21, 22, 23 years old. So teams in this division, they're physically mature. They got older. Their star players are older players, but I think it's going to be great for our young players to play in the division this year. It's only going to make them better going forward. And so, we're gonna continue to work and compete every night. We'll see where we're at the deadline, and then we'll make the appropriate decisions at that time.
Next is Ian McIntyre, Sportsnet.
Good morning, Jim.
Hi, Ian.
So a couple of the teams ahead of you have already changed coaches. Why do you still believe in Travis?
Well, Travis is doing a good job with our group. I think our coaches, they're doing good work for us. They're understanding, the problems that we have. That's the one thing about playing the same teams over and over. Like the weaknesses you have as a team get exposed, and then you have to adjust. I think he's done a good job of that. He's kind of had these young players for the last 3 years here, 4 years, and he's growing them to where they're at right now. He's continuing to work with them to make them better, to get better. So I'm not looking to make a coaching change. I think him and his staff have done a good job with our group.
And your owner came out with a very strong statement in support of you and Travis about a month ago. I don't know if you felt you needed that, but what was your reaction to it, and what's your relationship like with the owners?
I have a real good relationship with Francesco. He's, you know, the guy that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. You know, we had a plan this summer. You know, we have a plan going forward. We update him on that plan constantly. He knows, you know, what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. And, you know, the nice thing, he's been supportive of us. So I'm, you know, happy that he did that. And I feel grateful for the support of, you know, that he's given us through this season. It's been, you know, it hasn't been easy, but to have his support means a lot.
Next up is Patrick Johnston, Vancouver Province.
Hi, Jim. Thanks
Hi,
for taking the time today. There hasn't been a president or CEO here for more than 2 years, both roles that carry a lot of importance. Speaking of ownership, do you feel you've been given enough space to actually do the GM's job properly?
Yes. Like you know, like I have a good, like I said, I have a good relationship with Francesco. We, you know, we talk about in the summertime a plan, we formulate a plan, you know, we execute the plan. And, you know, it's, you know, we, like when we planned the team out this summer, you know, before we were in the Pacific Division, we were going to be playing all the teams in the league. You know, with the pandemic, with the border being closed, you know, it turned out we're just going to be playing these Canadian teams this year. So, you know, things have changed in that regard, and we're in uncharted territory here. Like I've been associated, you know, with the league for 40 years now as a player, scouting and management positions, and like, you know, we're playing every second night, and you know, like if you don't, maybe you don't have a good skating team. Our travel across Canada, like we're still traveling, but you know, this is something that, you know, we need to figure out and adapt to, because it's, you know, like we've never seen this before. So I think, you know, we're getting better and better. We're playing with good structure now. Our guys, I know one thing, our guys are going to work and compete. And, you know, adversity, we've gone through some adversity. I look at it as adversity is a good thing. We, you know, you know, people are hard on you, but you try to figure out a way to get better. Your players, you know, everybody involved, coaching, management, we have to be mentally tough to get through these tough times. But I think once we get through them, it's going to make, you know, everybody stronger. The players are going to be better. You know, all of us, we're going to be stronger for going through this adversity.
You mentioned earlier that the players are playing better recently, which I think is fair. But at the end of the day, you guys aren't getting the results. It seems hard to say that this is a step forward this season versus last year.
Well, I think you got to look at the whole picture. You know, you're playing, you know, little two to 4 game sets. You know, I'd say, like, you know, against real good competition. I guess it's how you look at it, right? And, you know, for us, of course, we want more wins. You know, that's why we play the games. We want to win games. But there's a process that you got to go through to play the right way, do the right things. And I think we're doing those things now. And I think we're going to give ourselves an opportunity to compete in all the games and for our players to continue to get better. Like there's a lot of different issues in this year compared to other years. Like, first of all, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. We got a flat cap here going forward. We got, you know, 3 real good young players that we got to sign this summer. We got expansion coming up, so we got to be covered for that. So there's a lot of things that go into planning but, you know, like I said, we're getting through all those things. And, you know, of course, I'm not happy with our record. But I think if you play the right way, you do things the right way, then, you know, we'll start winning our share of games and our record will be better than it is right now.
Next, we'll go to Farhan Lalji, TSN.
Jim, you've kind of talked about how this team is playing better and you want to wait until the deadline. The numbers are pretty daunting in terms of what it's going to take to get into the playoffs. You're probably going to have to win at least 2/3 of your games going forward. Do you believe this team can still make the playoffs?
Well, like we live day to day. Like we live, with, today. We're in today's world. Like we got a game against Toronto. We played Toronto last night. I thought we competed hard. We played a good game. They have a real good team. We play them tomorrow night. That's what we're focused in on right now. The trade deadline's 5 weeks away, and we'll wait till we're closer. I'm talking to other general managers at this moment. I talked to 2 or 3 guys yesterday, to make preparations for the trade deadline. So we're prepared, but, we're going to just wait to see where we're at as we get closer to the deadline before we decide what we're going to do.
2 players I'd like to ask you about. I know that it was reported yesterday that you've begun discussions with Tanner Pearson about a possible extension. A week ago, it was reported that Jake Virtanen's name had been mentioned in trade talks. Can you bring us up to date on those 2 situations? And in Jake's case, is he someone you view as an asset, or is he someone you still view as a long-term piece in this organization?
So with Tanner Pearson, we haven't started talks yet. Tanner is an important player in our group. I think, since we traded for him and Bo have been real good together. He's a real pro. Like he leads by example. He plays the right way. He's strong on the walls. He gets to the front of the net. But the way he handles himself on a day-to-day basis is a guy that, we want our younger players around. And, he's won a Stanley Cup. I think he, helps with our culture in our room and in our group. So we're going to sit down with his agent, Joe Risnick, and just see if there's some common ground that we can get to and that makes sense for him and for us. And we're going to try to re-sign him. With Jake, it's been a trying year for Jake. Like, I think we've been patient with him. He came in. It's been hard on a lot of our young players this year playing in this format that we're playing in. Like, there's other young players on the team too that, we thought would make a step that haven't showed us yet that they've made that step. Jake's no different. He's in that category. Teams are going to phone and ask about all of our players. Teams have phoned and inquired about Jake. We want to be, to do the right thing for our organization. We've been patient with Jake. And, I think last night was a glimpse of what he's capable of doing when he's skating, moving his feet, going to the net. He's got a great release on his shot. So we're going to continue to work with them. Part of the problem in this pandemic world that we're playing in right now is that, when you trade for a player, unless it's going to be a younger player that kind of fits our group here moving forward, there's a 2-week quarantine where that player needs to stay isolated. And then when you haven't done anything for 2 weeks, it's another week to start working out, to start skating, to get in shape to play. So, any player that we look to trade for and bring in, he's 3 weeks away from, probably playing a game for us. So we can't look from the outside to improve things. And, this is the conversations I have with Travis. We got to figure it out from within. And, I think last night, Howerluck played and Michaelis played, and I thought they both did a real good job. So, we got to just continue we got some good players that are playing good in our minor league team. And so we're going to look, inwards to try to make the team better for now.
Next is Barry DeLay, Global TV.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for doing this. If it's obvious come trade deadline that playoffs are not going to happen, you referenced the COVID world. Really, what kind of moves can you make? Or do you find it's going to be extremely difficult as opposed to, say, a regular year?
I don't know that yet. Like this is, like I said, it's all uncharted territory with, so we'll see. I would suspect, teams that have or think they have a good chance to win are going to add, a player or two that they think that can get them over the hump. But we'll just have to wait and see as we get closer to the deadline what it's going to look like.
You talked about playing in that all Canadian division this year, and next year likely it'll be back to somewhat normal. Does that mean you exercise more patience and not changing the track of what you want your team to be just because the circumstance this year is different?
I think so. Like, I don't think, there's anything that we're going to do, like I said, from going to the outside to add a player. He's 3 weeks away. So, I think we have to just keep trying to figure out how to get better from within and to make all of our players better. And, that's the mindset that we have. And that's, the way Travis is attacking this whole thing. And, that's going to be our thinking.
Next up, we'll go to Daniel Wagner. Vancouver is awesome.
Jim, just looking back to something you said earlier on in your tenure as Canucks GM, you said you hope by your 4th or 5th year that you expected you'd be up there with the elite teams in the league. We're in year 7, and not only are the Canucks not among the elite teams, it's an open question of whether they're even a playoff team. What has gone wrong, and what is the plan moving forward to get the Canucks to that level?
Well, in our, we're going to have patience when you talk about drafting, developing, and, when these players are ready to play, stepping in, and then it takes them, we have some players that step in right away and, like Petey and Quinn, and they can, they have success right away. And then there's other players like Oli Ulevi that takes a little bit longer to develop. But I think the games he's played this year, he's showing good progress. Last year we made the playoffs. We had some success in the bubble. And then, things have changed, like with the pandemic and the flat cap going forward, and these young players that we're going to have to re-sign after this year. The circumstances, didn't stay the same. When we went to the, before the pause last year, they were talking about the cap going up, and then we had the pause. So, I think we're on the right course. I like, a lot of the young players. I like where they're at in their development. But to answer your question, like the years, we still got, 27 games to play yet this year. We've been playing better. We're going to keep competing hard and working and fighting. And it's no different than, where we were at last year at the trade deadline when, we were trying to make the playoffs. And then once we made them, in the bubble, we played some good hockey. And I'm not ruling out that, that we can't play good hockey from here on in, and we'll just see where it ends up.
And you're talking about things changing heading into this season. One of the things we've heard from players that left in free agency this past offseason is that they didn't feel like there was a lot of communication from management. Has communication been an issue for you and your management team?
I don't think so. I had communication with all their agents, as we were going in to free agency, as we were working our way through it. We made offers. Those players got more term and maybe more money than what we were willing to do. And so they moved on. And, it is what it is. We have, some young players that are coming underneath them. We've made some trades to try to, keep the team competitive. It's been hard because without the practice time, a lot of our new players, it took some time for them to adjust, as it does whenever you bring in, new players. You're going to a new city. It's a new coach, new players you're playing with, new system, and it takes time. And so, I don't agree with that. I think we were in, we had good communication with all of them, and it just didn't work out.
Next is Jeff Patterson, The Athletic.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jeff.
I'm not asking you or expecting you to negotiate in the media, but the Patterson and Hughes extensions, and you've alluded to them, are going to be two of the most important contracts in franchise history. And it kind of feels like deals that will require finesse from both sides, especially in a pandemic. So have you begun working with their agents to explore frameworks of those contracts, or are you leaving those contracts until after the season?
Well, I've had conversations with Pat Pearson yesterday and JP Barry. And our plan is we're going to get through the trade deadline, and then we're going to phone those guys up and start talking about, what an extension looks like for both players. So we have a plan in place. Chris Gears worked real hard to figure out comparables. And, like I said, we're going to just get through the deadline and then start working on those new deals.
And Mikey DiPietro has been on the taxi squad since camp. He's around the team, obviously. Is there a plan to get him any game action at any level this season? And if the answer is no, what does that do for a 21-year-old goalie's development?
Well, it's hard. We've talked about it. We're going to continue to explore, what that would look like to get him some games. He needs to play. I understand that. But in the meantime, he's practicing every day. He's working with Ian Clark. I think there's some benefits to that too. But I agree with you. At some point here, we're going to have to figure out to get him some games.
Okay, next we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star.
Hi, Jim, appreciate you doing this. I wanted to ask you about two things, but you've answered all the questions I think about what you can about the trade deadline and how coronavirus is affecting it. But the coronavirus is also affecting the draft. I know that's a little ways away for you, but it's an important tool in your kit. I wonder if you have any hard ideas on what you think should happen with the draft this summer. Should it be delayed? And is the fact that so many players haven't played, haven't been scouted, does it affect what the value of a draft pick is at the trade deadline?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer to the value of a draft pick at the trade deadline. We'll just have to wait and see. We're conducting business as usual, like there's going to be a full draft this summer. So our scouts now, the WHL is playing games, and so we're getting boots on the ground and getting eyeballs on these guys that are, draftable for this season. Our scouts have watched video, right from the start of the year, whether it's video from last year's, the players playing. But we're preparing like it's going to be a full draft till we hear otherwise, and we'll be ready for this year's draft.
Thanks very much.
Okay, next up we'll go to Thomas Drance, The Athletic. Thomas, are you there? Okay, we'll come back to Thomas here in a second. We'll go to Nicholas Kotsonika with NHL.com.
Hi, Jim. I understand the desire to wait until the trade deadline to make a decision, but because of COVID and the fact that players will have to quarantine if they cross the border, doesn't that force you to make a decision earlier? And do you think the trade market will be active earlier for that reason?
I can't answer that question. Like, I've been in contact with all the general managers in the league, and I think what ends up happening is deals are made when teams feel the urgency or the need. There's a deadline in place. Like, if we can do a deal right now that's going to help us for the rest of this year and in the future, we'll look to do that. But that's not really happening right now. So we're going to continue to, that's part of my job. I enjoy that part of the job. I talk to other general managers to try to get a feel where they're at and what they're going to do. And so we're prepared at the time. But as you've seen since the start of the season, outside of a few deals, a big deal with Columbus and Winnipeg, there really hasn't been a lot of deals. So we'll stay prepared, and if something comes our way that we think makes sense, we'll look to do it.
Okay, we'll return here to Thomas Drance with The Athletic.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thanks for standing in there today. Hey, the market had a significant reaction to a comment you made, quoted by the province about a month ago, about how your club ran out of time into Foley negotiations this offseason. What's your message to those fans in the market who had high hopes for this club after the success in the bubble and are now less confident in your ability to lead this core group you've built over the top?
Well, I think my comments were oversimplified at the time. Like, I tried to run through kind of, what happened and how it happened. But we had, alternative plans in place. We wanted to see Nils Hoglander get a good opportunity to play this year. And I think he's been excellent for us. I'm really happy, with his play. He arrives first on the puck. He wins puck battles. Like, he's the type of guy that, I think we need going forward. He's a 20-year-old player, but he looks like he's been in the league for a couple of years. So we made some tough decisions at the time, and we move on. We're gonna, I think, realistically, like our core players, they still need to mature a little bit yet. And, I think, in 2 years' time, I think we're going to be real competitive and have a chance to compete for the cup. But we have to, keep building, keep adding players to our group, and our young core players have to continue to grow and get better.
And to follow up on that, you've said that you want to wait closer until the deadline and make appropriate decisions at that time during this call. But considering the time concern this offseason, is there a risk of being unable to maximize returns on some expiring players should you decide to sell, especially considering the logistical challenges that this deadline posed by quarantine and so on and so forth, and the lack of money and cap space in a flat cap system?
Yeah, but I think the market's going to decide a lot of that, right? Like, if, there has to be teams that want to make trades, and I expect we're going to get some calls on our players, and we'll just see where it goes.
Okay, next we'll go to Bick Nazar, Sportsnet 650.
Hi, Jim. You mentioned the contracts for Elias Patterson and Quinn Hughes. I'm curious if you could just explain what the benefits are of waiting till after the trade deadline to begin those discussions.
Well, we have lots of time. We're concentrating right now on the team, and like I said, I'd like to reach out to Pearson's camp and just see where they're at going into the deadline. And after the deadline, we'll have time. We don't have another pressing need for a while, so we'll have time to do it. And as you know, those deals, they usually don't get done right away. They take some time to get figured out. And I expect these deals, they're not going to be easy, and I expect they'll take some time anyway. So we have time.
You mentioned patience as well when it comes to player development, which is fair. Everyone understands, the things don't go in a straight line, but that patience also gets leveraged against fan expectations. At what point is it fair for fans to expect a reward for their patience?
Well, we're going to, when the games are played, we want to be in every game. We want to be competitive in every game. I think, we've taken a little bit of a step back so far, but we still have a half a season, and, we'll just see how things end up. But I think, like I talked earlier about the growth of, like, I think playing in this Canadian division, when you're playing against good players, star players every night, it's going to make your players better. So, I know it's hard, and I know right now, the adversity that, all Canadian teams are going through. I get it. I understand it. I think adversity is a good thing, but I think it's also going to make our players better, when we return to normal and we play against all the teams in the league on a one-off. You play one team, you fly to the next city, you play the next team. Like the hard part about, you play these 2, 3, 4 game series, like they're almost like mini playoff series, each set of games. And you can't really, it's hard to, unless you're a real good team, it's hard to string a bunch of wins together. And, I think, over, the course of this year, like, we've won some games, and then, then the next night, maybe we haven't been so good. And that's consistency. That's the maturity of our young players to keep, competing hard and being competitive every night. And it's a learning experience. And that's why I think, once we get through this year, this will be a good learning experience for all of our players, our young guys.
Okay, next up, we'll go to Kevin Woodley, NHL.com.
Hi, Jim. You praised Travis on this call. Your ownership gave you and him a vote of confidence. So is there, with a lack of an extension to this point, is this purely financial based on COVID, or is there a judgment to be made on Travis at the end of the season that you're waiting for? And if it's purely financial in terms of not doing it now, do you worry about him or other members of his staff just leaving on their own accord like a free agent might by waiting that long?
Well, my feeling on Travis is we really like him. He's done a good job with this group. He's our coach. I'm not going to comment on like I don't comment on player negotiations. I'm not going to comment on coaching negotiations, but it's something that we would like to get done moving forward.
Okay, next up here, we'll go to Rob Williams with Daily Hive.
Hi, Jim. You made the playoffs last year. You're in tough to get back there this year. But I think what most fans are wondering about is when will the team be able to compete for a Stanley Cup? How many years do you believe you are away from being able to be a credible Cup contender? And what pieces do you think you're missing to get there?
Well, like I've answered this question, I think, earlier. We have, Thatcher Demko we've groomed him since we've drafted him to be a number one goalie for us. I believe that, when our team is good, he's going to give us the goaltending that we need in the playoffs to compete for a cup. We've got, with Quinn and Ole on defense, we got some young defensemen in place, and then we got all of our young forwards. So I think, they have to continue to mature as players, get physically stronger. So my hope is that, that things return to normal, first of all, where we're playing against all the teams in the league. And, my hope is that happens here in the fall, and we get fans back in the building. And, we got some money coming off the books this summer. We're going to, try to make some decisions on, making the team better here for next year. And we're going to hit the ground running. And, my hope is that in a couple of years that we have a type of team that's competitive every night and that can compete for the cup.
Okay, time for a couple more here. We'll go back to Patrick Johnson, Vancouver Province.
Hi, Jim. Just looking at Louis' situation, do you have any regrets now about signing that contract?
Well, the first, like every team in the league has bad contracts. That's just the nature of doing business. Like you're never going to be perfect. And our thinking at the time was that, we had the Sedins for a couple more years, that he could complement them. And, it hasn't worked out like we expected it to. We thought even Louis is a good two-way player. And we thought even, if he's not scoring, he could still help contribute because he plays a good two-way game. I think we've seen glimpses of that in, the bubble, like when he played with Bo and Pierce. I thought that line was good for us, and Bo was excellent in that, those playoff series. So, but that's hindsight. That's just the nature of doing business. You're gonna, there's gonna be some decisions that you make that you wish you could have back, but it is what it is.
Okay, and we'll take our last question here from Farhan Lalji, TSN.
Can you give us an update on Petey?
Yeah, he's day to day right now. He got hit and banged up a little bit the first game in Winnipeg. He played the second game and tweaked, what he had going a little bit from before. So he's day to day, and so as soon as he's 100% healthy, he'll get back playing again.